चक्षुरुन्मिलितं श्री चैतन्य मनोविष्णु स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपदानवेन ददाति सकलं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातां साधना रघुनाथां तं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्ण चैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सगना श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च ओम शुभराय कृष्ण कृष्ण विक्लेश नते मुक्ति वेदांत स्वामी नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारनंदे विशेषशून्यादि पासाभ्यस्तानि वांछाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यश्च पतितानां नमः नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम दर्शनम् हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपसगोपकञ्चराधकञ्चन सत्यकांचन गौरांगी श्रीराधे वृंदावन सभी हरि जगन्नाथाय नित्याय परमात्मने वल्लभ सुभद्रा जगन्नाथाय चरण जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर नित्यानंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण. So now we will be discussing chapter number 13 to 18, beginning with chapter number 13.
Prabhuji, they're not pronounced. Voice is very low, Prabhuji. Maybe it's me, only for me or others, I don't know.
Yes, sir.
Yes, very little low, Prabhu.
Low. I can make it loud, but there would be some background noise.
Now it is okay.
It's better, Prabhuji.
Now it is okay.
Better. I think I naturally increased it, that's why it became better. Anyway. So we are going to start 13 to 18, chapter number. And so I just show the overview again. I'll say the PPT. So as we discussed many times before also, Bhagavad Gita is compared to jewel box. Chapter number 1 to 6 are Karma Yoga prominently. They are like the lower lid. Chapter number 7 to 12 are like Bhakti Yoga. They are like the jewel within the box. And chapter number 13, 8 to 18 is Jnana Yoga. Now Krishna has spoken about Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga in order to understand or highlight the glories of Bhakti Yoga. Also to protect Bhagavad Gita, so that even if Bhagavad Gita is worn out, Bhakti Yoga is not lost. And another reason why Krishna has spoken about Jnana Yoga from chapter number 13 to 17 basically, 18th is more of a summary. The reason is that till we stay in this world, we have to deal with matter. And unless until we are detached from matter, we can't become attached to Krishna. So Jnana Yoga helps a person to become detached from matter. So that is the main reason why Krishna has spoken Jnana Yoga from chapter number 13 to 17. It's already we had discussed before. So basically it discusses more about Jnana Yoga. And the reason is that, okay, somebody can read the points. Read first
Jnana
one,
Yoga.
Please continue.
Entity, Jiva, the material.
Manjunath is not audible. At least to me. I don't know how the others.
Yes, bro. Jnana Yoga involves the precise characteristics of the living entity, Jiva, the material nature, Prakriti, and the Supreme Lord, Isvara. Jnana assists us in developing detachment from matter and subsequent attachment to Krishna. Thus, it serves as the door to Bhakti. Without touch of Bhakti, both karma and jnana are useless. Naiskarmyam api achyuta bhava.
So Jnana Yoga deals with Jiva, the living entity, Prakriti, the material nature, and Iswara, Supreme God. We can remember it by MSC. M for matter, S for spirit, C for controller of both. So matter is material nature, spirit is living entity Jiva, and C is controller of both, that is Iswara, Supreme God. So all these three play very important role till we stay in this material world and we have material bodies, gross and subtle. And that is the reason Krishna has spoken about Jnana Yoga in the last 6 chapters. Also, as I was discussing before, Jnana helps us to develop detachment from this world, especially detachment from sense gratification. And that helps one to develop attachment to Krishna. Because if we are absorbed in sense gratification, we can't think of Krishna. That's why Jnana serves as door to Bhakti. But certainly, Bhakti, without Bhakti, both karma and jnana are useless. Nas karma bachut bhava varjitam, na sobete jnana manam ranjana. Kuta punas saswat abhadram isware, na charpitam karme di avtar. So nas karma api achyut bhava varjitam. Even nas karma means basically not doing karma. That means jnana. Api achyut bhava varjitam. If in that there is no discussion about Lord Achyut, Lord Krishna, na sobete jnanam alanjan. Such jnana doesn't look realizable. It doesn't look realizable. That's why bhakti, touch of bhakti is required, both for karma and jnana. So that is the reason why Lord has spoken of Jnana Yoga, so that we can develop the detachment from this world. Now I'll speak about all 6 chapters concisely. And then we'll go into the summary of chapter number 3. So if we enter into all 6 chapters slowly, so after discussing about different types of bhakti, different qualities that makes one dear to Krishna, now Krishna starts speaking about Jnana Yoga, beginning with chapter number 13. So chapter number 13 is also called Prakriti Purush Vivek Yoga, where discussion about Jiva, Paramatma and Prakriti is given very nicely. Prabhupada writes it as the nature, the enjoyer and consciousness. So that is discussion precisely in chapter number 13, or I would say concisely. In chapter number 14, because Prakriti, when it comes to Prakriti, the material nature, it is composed of 3 modes of material nature. And mode of goodness is conducive to bhakti, whereas mode of passion and ignorance are not conducive to bhakti. And that is the reason Lord discusses about 3 modes of material nature. This is also called Good Traya Vibhag Yoga, chapter number 14. So which mode causes what type of bondage and what are its symptoms? Which mode causes which type of bondage, what type of bondage and what are its symptoms is explained in chapter number 14. And how can we get rid of 3 modes of material nature by practice of bhakti? What are the symptoms that effects of mode are reducing, going away? What is the cause of disappearance of these modes, effect of these modes? All these things are discussed in chapter number 14. And then chapter number 15 is also called Purushottam Yoga. It talks about how detachment from matter is the cause of cessation of birth and death. When we detach from matter, no more birth, no more death. How soul is ansa of the Lord, part and parcel of the Lord. And how Krishna is superior both to the jivas and matter. So that is in chapter number 15. It also talks about surrendering process in text number 5. And then this text number 16, 17, 18, they're precisely called Purushottam Yoga. Sorry, verse number 16, 17, 18 of this chapter, chapter number 15, is called Purushottam Yoga, and it is sometimes called three Shloki Shastras also. So the essence of all the scriptures is given in these three verses, 16, 17, 18. And because of these three verses, this chapter is also named as Purushottam Yoga, the yoga of the Supreme Person. Now chapter number 16, and chapter number 15, I just forward. Chapter number 15 also talks about the Ben entry, in which through that analogy, whole material nature and its entanglement is explained. How to get rid of this metal nature is also explained by this analogy. But Krishna had not discussed about two types of fruits, the good and the bitter one. That Lord discusses chapter number 16. So he talks about qualities of a devotee and qualities of a demon. Dev Asur Sampada Yoga. Those who are Devas were in mode of goodness, and those who are Asuras, what are their qualities? So these two conditions are well described in this chapter number 16. Then coming to chapter number 17, it is called Satvik Siddha Yoga, because Arjuna wanted to know about people who give up scriptures, what is their position. So Lord gives description of Sattvagoda, Rajagoda and Tamagoda things. How everything is there in three motion material nature. And those who are in mode of goodness follow scriptures, others don't follow mode of goodness or follow the scriptures. And their results are given very, very clearly. So that's explained in chapter number 17. And the chapter number 18 is practically summary of whole Bhagavad Gita here. Because toward the end of chapter number 17, Lord said that all the things should be performed for the purpose of spiritual advancement. No other purpose has to be there. Don't do it for sense gratification. So chapter number 18 speaks about three types of sannyas, jnana, karma, defines liberation. It talks of begins with karma yoga, especially niskam karma yoga. Then it discusses about varnasam system, which is like the basis of karma yoga. Then it talks about jnana yoga. Jnana yoga Krishna had previously rejected, but here he talks about it. Then it talks about the knowledge of Paramatma. So knowledge of Brahman is called Guhya Gyan. Knowledge of Paramatma is called Guhya Tara Gyan. And then it talks about Bhakti, the Guhya Tama Gyan. And it discusses about these two famous verses, Man Mano Bhavo Mad Bhakto and Sarv Dharman Parityajya, which are like two jewels on the lid of the box to indicate what is there in the box. So these two verses are like considered like two jewels on the lid of the box. When Bhagavad Gita is compared to jewel box. And after that, Lord discusses about glories of hearing Bhagavad Gita, speaking Bhagavad Gita, reading Bhagavad Gita, whom to speak, whom not to speak. And towards the end, there is realization of Sanjay, who was also hearing Bhagavad Gita. Dhritarashtra becomes concerned after hearing Bhagavad Gita because everybody was happy except Dhritarashtra. So he says that, will my sons win? And the conclusive verse of Bhagavad Gita says, no. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna yatra Spati Dhanadhara Tatra Sri Vijaya Bhute Dhvani Tirmata. So wherever is Krishna, wherever is Arjuna, so Vijay, victory, all opulences, good fortune is there on their side. And because Krishna and Arjuna are on the side of Yudhishthir, Yudhishthir is sure to win. So no hope for your sons, my dear Dhritarashtra. So that's the end of Bhagavad Gita. So this was all 6 chapters in concise. Now we'll go in chapter by chapter, beginning with chapter number 30. First we'll discuss about summary of chapter number 13. So chapter number 13, it will begin with 6 questions by Arjuna. Krishna will describe Kshetra, Kshetragya and Jnanam, these 3 things, in verse 2 to 7. Verse 8 to 12, Krishna discusses about process of acquiring that knowledge. But Arjuna had question about that also. Verse number 13 to 19, Krishna answers about Gyayam. What is Gyayam? Is object of knowledge. What to know about? What is object of knowledge? Verse number 20 to 26, Lord talks about Prakriti, the material nature. Purusa means so-called enjoyer as well as the real enjoyer, the super soul, both. And what their union produces. When they come near each other, what happens? When they come in contact with each other, what happens? And one who has that vision of this knowledge of Prakriti, Purus, and Purus means the real enjoyer, Paramatma, and the imitating enjoyer, Jiva, and material nature, Prakriti. One who has that knowledge, when he sees the things, he sees around things in this world, what is his vision? What is that vision of knowledge? This is explained from 27 to 34. So that is how this whole chapter goes. So anybody has any question regarding summary of chapter number 13 or first last 6 chapters?
Hare Krishna, Guruji.
Yes.
Here you mentioned Purush means it will be a super soul. Also, it gives meanings about living entity also, Prabhuji.
Yes. So one is real Purusa, one is imitating Purusa. So real Purusa is Paramatma and imitating Purusa is Jiva.
Thank you.
So now we'll start from 13th. So all these 3, Jiva, Prakriti and Paramatma, are discussed in chapter number 13. So it's also called Prakriti, Purus, Vivek Yoga. Prakriti means material nature and Purus means enjoyer. 2 types of enjoyer, Jiva and the Supreme Lord. So distinction of matter and the Lord, 2 types of Lord, small L Lord and capital L Lord, is explained in chapter number 13. Prabhupada calls his nature, the enjoyer and consciousness. So we'll start with verse number 1. Arjuna Vacha Pragatim Purusam Chaiva Kshetram Kshetragyam Evacha Etat Veditum Ikshami Jnanam Gyayam Cha Kesava. Sri Bhagavan Vacha Idam Sariram Kaunteya Kshetram Gyam Iti Avidhiyate Etad Yo Veti Tam Praho Kshetragya Iti Tadvidaha. Please read the translation.
Arjuna said, "Oh my dear Krishna, I wish to know about the Prakriti, the nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field and the knower of the field, and of knowledge and the object of knowledge." The Supreme Personality of the Godhead said, "This body, O son of Kunti, is called the field, and one who knows this body is called knower of the field." Hare Krishna.
So you can read purport of the first paragraph.
Okay. Purport given by Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Arjuna was inquisitive about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, Kshetra, the field, Kshetragna is its knower, and knowledge and the object of knowledge. When he inquired about all this, Krishna said that this body is called the field, and that one who knows this body is called the knower of the field. This body is the field of activity for the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul is entrapped in material existence, and he attempts to lord it over material nature. And so, according to his capacity to dominate material nature, he gets a field of activity. That field of activity is the body. And what is that body? The body is made of senses. The conditioned soul wants to enjoy sense gratification, and according to his capacity to enjoy sense gratification, he is offered a body or a field of activity. Therefore, the body is called a kshetra, or the field of activity for the conditioned soul. Now, the person who identifies himself within the body with the body is called Kshetrajna, the knower of the field. It is not very difficult to understand the difference between the field and its knower, the body and the knower of the body. Any person can consider that from childhood to old age, he undergoes so many changes of the body and yet is still one person remaining. Thus, there is a difference between the knower of the field of activities and the actual field of activities. A living and living conditioned soul can thus understand that he is different from the body. It is described in the beginning, Deinosmin, that living entity is within the body, and that body is changing from the childhood to boyhood, and from boyhood to youth, and from youth to old age. And, and the person who knows the body knows that the body is changing. The owner is distinctly Kshetrajna. Sometimes we think, I'm happy, I'm man, I'm woman, I'm a dog, I'm a cat. These are all bodily designations of the knower. But the knower is different from the body. Although we may use many articles, our clothes, etc., we know that we are different from the things we used. Similarly, we also understood by a little contemplation that we are different from the body. I or you or anyone else who owns the body is called Kshetrajna, the knower of the field of activities. And the body is called Kshetra, the field of activities itself. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
So basically, Arjuna has asked 6 questions. First is, what is Prakriti, material nature? Purusa, the enjoyer, who enjoys this material nature. What is the field? Kshetra, the knower of the field. Kshetragya. Jnanam, what is knowledge? What is the definition of knowledge? And Gyam, what is object of knowledge? Means what is to be known. So these 6 questions are there. So we'll discuss them, some of these things as Prabhupada discussed. So Kshetra. So Kshetra basically literally means field. And why Krishna has given an example of Kshetra? Because in traditional India, 80% of the Indian population would depend on farming. Nowadays it is not like that. Recently things have changed. Like I think 80% of the population of Bangalore must be software engineers. Something like that. So 180% of the population was farmers. So Krishna gives the example of farming, Kshetra. So the body and senses are compared to Kshetra. Why? Because this body is abode of enjoyment. This is the first reason. Like if one has field, one can grow any sort of thing in the field. One can grow mango tree, one can grow neem tree, one can grow babul tree. Any sort of tree one can grow. One can grow flowers, one can grow weeds. And once a fruit is grown, it becomes ripe. The seeds of the fruit again can produce more trees, more plants. So in this way, there is a capacity to regenerate in a field. Similarly, by creating different type of karmas, one can again have repeated birth and death by the medium of this particular body. And that is why this particular body is compared to that field. And Prabhupada would also generally speak that land, cows and gold, they are real wealth. Because even if 1,000 rupee notes doesn't work, government changes, there are strong political changes, these 3 things always remain valuable. Whatever government may be. Land, cows and gold. And one of the reasons is that if one has land, so basic necessities of life are always fulfilled. So one can always have food, clothing, shelter if one has land. So Chitra. Nowadays things are discouraged. People buy flats, something on air. You don't have land. Especially in Bangalore. But traditionally, Chitra is something very important. So these two reasons I spoke. First is it is about of enjoyment. One enjoys via media of body. Second is it is cause of repeated birth and death. Also, this body, which compared to Chitra, in that one can grow different trees. Trees made up of Maya Shakti, made up of metal. And depending on the seed which we have sown, one can get fruits of distress or one can get fruits of happiness. So in this way, one can grow any of the fruits. And who knows about it? Kshetragya. Kya means Gyata, knower. So who is the knower of the field? It is Jiva who is knower of the field. And later on after what, next verse only, we'll see that another knower is Paramatma. So here we'll discover Jiva, that how Jiva is the knower of the field. So he has different two types of knowledge. In conditioned state, the knowledge is like that of I and mind. I am this body. Things belonging to this body, connected to this body are mine. In liberated state, the knowledge is free from this conception of aham mameti. I am this body and things belonging to this body are mine. One is free from that. So that is in the liberated state. Why this jiva is called knower of the field? Like the farmer who plows the field, he knows the field. He knows whether the land is barren or fertile, or some portion of the land is fertile, some portion of the land is barren. He is one who has planted the seed. He knows which plant is going to grow, what of fruits are going to come. So in this way, he is the enjoyer of the fruit and also the knower of the field. Similarly, conditioned living entity, he sows the fruit of piety, fruit of sin. So the seed of piety, seed of sin, or seed of liberation. So if one puts the seed of sin, then one gets distress. If one sows the seed of piety, one goes to Sargaloka. One enjoys that. One gets happiness. But both these sort of seeds cause a repeated birth and death. Only when one sows the seed of liberation, then one can be free from the repeated birth and death. In this way, conditioned living entity, he puts the seed and he knows that whatever fruits will come, and ultimately he is the one who enjoys the fruits. Enjoyment in the sense that he eats it. Sometimes he may enjoy, sometimes he may suffer. If it is a mango tree, he'll enjoy. And if it is a neem fruit, he'll suffer. So this is, he is the one who enjoys or suffers. That's why Jiva is also called Kshetragya, knower of the field. Now Lord will talk about another type of knower. Kshetragyam chapi mam viddhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. Kshetra kshetragyayor jnanam yattat jnanam matam mama. Please read that translation.
Son of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower of all bodies, and to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. That is my opinion.
You can read this paragraph. The Lord says, Paragraph number 3.
The Lord says, I am the knower of the field of activities in every individual body. The individual may be the knower of his own body, but he is not in knowledge of other bodies. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is present as a super soul in all bodies, knows everything about all bodies. He knows all the different bodies of all the various species of life. A citizen may know everything about his patch of land, but the king knows not only his palace, but all the properties possessed by the individual citizens. Similarly, one may be the proprietor of the body individually, but the Supreme Lord is a proprietor of all bodies. The king is the original proprietor of the kingdom, and the citizen is a secondary proprietor. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is a supreme proprietor of all bodies. Hare Krishna, bro.
Yeah, thank you. So in this way, this particular verse refutes Mayavad philosophy. Kshetragyam cha api mam vidhi. That means cha means in previous verse Lord talk about one Kshetragya. Lord says apart from there is one more Kshetragya. Cha api. And previous Kshetragya was Kshetragya of one Kshetra. But Lord says this Kshetragya is Kshetragya of all the bodies. Sarva Kshetresu Bharata. So in this way, living entity and super soul, their distinction is clearly explained in this verse. Otherwise, Mayavadis say that soul and super soul is same. Atma so Paramatma. Atma is only Paramatma. It is not like that. Atma and Paramatma are different. And the difference Prabhupada explains is like citizens may say, oh, this land belongs to me, that land belongs to me. But for government, all the land belongs to government. As soon as government wants to expand a road, make some new colonies, so then they pay everything, they pay things at government price and you have to leave the land. There's no option at all. And in general, government price is much more lower than the actual price of the land. So, but that is how the whole land belongs to the government. Similarly, we may say that I am the proprietor of this body, but Lord is proprietor of all the bodies. And that is why he is knower of all the bodies. Jiva knows about only his body, and that too very limitedly. That is why such a big medical industry is there. We have to go to doctors and ask what is going on in my body. And even doctor is not, he doesn't understand nicely. So then one has to go through CT scan and this and that and this blood test, that thing, this test, stool test, urine test, so many other tests, in order to understand about his own body. So we know about own body, that too limitedly, whereas Lord knows about all the bodies perfectly. So that's why there is a clear distinction between two types of Kshetragya. One is soul, another is super soul. Super soul knows about everything perfectly. Soul knows about only one body, one's own body, and that too imperfect. Even the people whom we love, we don't know about them perfectly. Like I remember in childhood, when I would get sick. So then mother would say, if it was possible, I would have taken your disease. But what to do, I can't do. And especially when babies are very small, mother doesn't understand exactly what baby wants. Baby may be crying because a bug has bitten him. And mother thinks, no, this fellow is hungry. And she feeds him milk. That's why babies many times they have a lot of loose motions. This is one of the reasons. Because parents don't understand when the child is hungry and he is not hungry. So that's why babyhood especially is considered very, very great suffering. So that is how we don't know. We don't know about others' pains and pleasures. Lord can know about all pains and pleasures perfectly. Was he the actual Chitragya? That's why Lord can only claim that I love everyone, because he understands. And Prabhupada gives a very beautiful analogy. He gives the analogy of that one should not confuse between the painter, painting, and easel. They all are different. So the easel is the material nature in which the painting is done. Painter is the Supreme Lord, and he does that painting by medium of jivas. Like jivas get a material body, which is like painting, child coming out. Lord is the one who sends the jiva, and he sends the jiva in this world by a media of mother and father. So that is how one gets a body. So all three are different. They are not same. So the beautiful analogy given by Prabhupada. So as soon as Arjuna hears it, immediately he poses more questions to Krishna. And the Lord explains them. Lord explains them by speaking about another terminologies. Tat chetram yatcha yat priksha yat vikari yatascha chat sacha yo yat prabhavascha tat samasena me srinu. Please read.
Now please hear my brief descriptions of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what its influences are.
Krishna has spoken all these terminologies. I'll explain them briefly. Okay, this previous analogy I'll speak very clearly now. Painter is Krishna, easel is material nature, and painting is material body or the nature of living entities. So that was in second last paragraph of the previous purport. These three are. Now coming to this verse. So Krishna briefs about the body, Jiva and Paramatma by some analogies. So he says, Yatcha, this body consisting of 5 gross elements, prana, senses, etc., is Yatcha. That's what Yatcha explains. What is this body? So this body consists of 5 gross elements, prana, senses, etc. Yadrik is what qualities it exhibits. What qualities it exhibits? Desire and hatred. Desire for sense gratification or things which are conducive for senses, and hatred for those things which my senses don't like. So that's Yadrik. Yadvikari means transformations. So desirable and undesirable things are produced by this body. Yadvikari. Then Yataha. So from where does it come? From where does it come? It comes from the combination of body and soul. By the combination of body and soul, Jiva comes. Yat means by what it's distinguished. It is distinguished by differences among various moving and non-moving bodies. So there are some moving bodies, insects, reptiles, animals, etc. And the non-moving bodies like trees and mountains. Some mountains also have life. The trees have life, mountains also have life. Ya sa. Who is he? So who is the knower of the field? The Jiva and the Paramatma. These are the two knower of the field. So these are the two knower of the field. Yeah, it is 13.4. So Krishna explains about these terminologies, and now Lord is going to explain them one by one. And Lord will first tell from where does he explain all these things. So Arjuna said that you are explaining these things concisely, terminologies concisely. You have explained 6 or 7 terminologies. Who discuss them in very, very elaborately? Or where are they given in detail? So Lord speaks next verse further. ऋषिभेर बहुधा गीतम छंदो भेर विविधे पृथक ब्रह्म सूत्र पदेश सेवा हेतु मध्य निश्चित. Please read.
That knowledge of field of activities and of the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is especially presented in Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as cause and effect.
Thank you. So Krishna is saying, now Krishna is quoting the Guru Sadhu Sastra here. Rishibhir means Lord is saying the thing which I am explaining as your Guru is explained by other rishis also. Other sadhus also explain the same thing which Guru explains. And then Chandobhir, Chanda means basically Vedas, and Brahma Sutras means Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra is also called Brahma Sutra. So Lord says that what I am explaining as a Guru is also explained by other sadhus, other rishis, is also explained by the Shastras. That is how Guru, Sadhu, Shastras, they speak about same thing. They explain about same thing. So Guru is also supposed to repeat other sadhus and the Shastras. So it has been described by rishis such as Vasishtha, etc. in the scripture dealing with yoga, by the Vedas, Chandoghi, by the words of Brahma Sutras. So Brahma Sutra through their words like Vedant, like Athato Brahmin Jigyasa given in Vedanta Sutra. So by that one can know Padyate. Whether one can know Padyate, that means one can know Brahman. So what are these words? Hetu Madhya. Means these are the words of logic. So Vedanta Sutras are there, and using the logic, one tries to understand the essence. Viseshta Nishchaya. One can certainly know the essence. Like we say, Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Athato means therefore. So one uses one logic. Therefore means how can a sentence start from therefore? Since we have got this human body, because only human beings can read the scriptures, therefore, Brahma Jigyasa. Try to understand the spiritual truth. Try to understand about Brahma. So using one's logic and Vedanta Sutras, one understands.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
Prabhu, as I said here, it also tells about the Guru Sadhu Shastra. As you see the translation, it tells about the Sadhu and Shastra. What is the Guru, Prabhu?
Guru is Krishna himself.
Prabhu, now?
No, it is clear.
Yeah, Prabhuji was telling about the Guru, no, Prabhu, like it said about the Sadhu and Shastra. How can you understand the Guru also tells in the same part of the Guru? How can I understand this? Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Krishna is playing the part of Guru here. And he is quoting sadhus, Rishibher, Bahuda Gitam, Rishi, he is quoting. And he is quoting Chandobir. Chandobir means Vedas. And Brahma Sutra means Vedanta Sutras. This part of Vedas. So in this way, Krishna being Guru is quoting from sadhus and Sastras. Similarly, we'll find Prabhupada also when he quotes from scriptures. He quotes so many verses in his lectures, in the purports. And he also quotes from other sadhus, like many times he quotes from the songs of Narottam Das Thakur, Bhakti Thakur, all these previous acharyas. So that's the work of Guru, to quote from the sadhus and Sastras.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Now you can read. This is like very interesting topic. Paragraph number 3, as stated before.
As stated before, Kshetra is a field of activities, and there are two kinds of Kshetragna, the individual living entity and the supreme living entity. As stated in the Taittiriya Upanishad 2.9, Brahma Pucham Pratishta. There is a manifestation of the Supreme Lord's energy known as Annamaya, dependence upon food for existence. This is a materialistic realization of the Supreme. Then in Pranamaya, after realizing the Supreme Absolute Truth in food, one can realize the Absolute Truth in the living symptoms or life forms. In Jnanamaya, realization extends beyond the living symptoms to the point of thinking, feeling, and willing. Then there is Brahman realization called Vijnanamaya, in which the living entity's mind and life symptoms are distinguished from the living entity himself. The next and supreme stage is Anandamaya, realization of the all blissful nature. Thus, there are 5 stages of Brahman realization which are called Brahma Pucham. Out of these, first 3, Annamaya, Pranamaya, and Jnanamaya, involve the field of activities of the living entities. Transcendental to all these fields of activities is the Supreme Lord, who is called Anandamaya. The Vedanta Sutra also describes the Supreme by saying Anandamayo Vyasat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is by nature full of joy. The joy to enjoy his transcendental bliss, he expands into Vijnanamaya, Pranamaya, Jnanamaya, and Annamaya. In the field of activities, the living entity is considered to be the enjoyer, and different from him is the Anandamaya. That means that if the living entity decides to enjoy in devoting himself with the Anandamaya, then he becomes perfect. This is a real picture of the Supreme Lord as a supreme knower of the field, the living entity as a subordinate knower, and the nature of the field of activities. One has to search for this truth in the Vedanta Sutra or Brahma Sutra. Hare Krishna.
So, for Brahma Pucha Pratishta, 5 type of kosas are there. So, the different kosas develop at different elevation of consciousness. And also, these 5 kosas, they all are need of every living entity, every individual. So previously in Gurukul, all these 5 type of kosas were developed. Guru would see that all these 5 kosas are developed. So what is Annamaya? Annamaya means people who are in the lowest level of consciousness, for them food is everything. Like you may see some insects. Practically the whole most important part of their body is their mouth. So they keep on searching for food here and there, that's all. So lower species. Similarly, you see the child also, when a child is born, anything you give him, he puts in the mouth. Because he sees everything like food. And when you sing kirtans also, many times small kids come. So they want to put even the mic in the mouth, sound box in the mouth, and the person was singing also in the mouth. So for them, the whole world is meant for eating. So that's Annamaya. And that also has to be developed. It is also kosa in one side, one sense. So that's why in the Vedic culture, we'll find in the Guru's ashram, people are taught what to eat, when to eat, how to eat, how to drink water. Nowadays, people don't know about these small things. Like night time, you're supposed to take light meal, morning time opulent meal, and afternoon time, you can take it full meal. But in the modern culture, it is just other way around. All parties happen in night time. So all party are dinner parties. So people are not aware of even this Annamai. Annamai courses also people are unaware of. What to eat, what not to eat. Then second course is Pranamai. So then people slowly understand it's not eating is not everything. There are other individuals also. In order to enjoy, I have to cooperate with them. So we are mutually dependent. We can't be very selfish. So then people learn about family, relationships, community, etc. So we similarly find in a species also, like pigeons. Pigeons, they are well aware of the family. And they are really very attached to the family. So those are little more developed are sometimes called pranamai. And for modern people, if you are in the level of pranamai, that itself is a very big thing nowadays. If one can maintain one family, one can keep the family members happy, one can live in a family. So people are not even aware of that. People get married, they don't know the duties of wife, duties of husband, duties towards parents, how to keep people happy to the best of the extent. So people don't have even that training. That training was also given in the Gurukul. So this pranamai. And we'll see that a lot of talks are about pranamai. How to cooperate with each other in order to sustain. Then there is Jnanmay. In the level of Jnanmay, one understands thinking, feeling, willing. That means one comes to the level of mind, intelligence, etc. One understands that other people also have sentiments. There's something called humanity. It's not just individual or mutual sense gratification. There's something beyond. So then such people sometimes become social service workers. They work for the welfare of others. Sometimes they work for the welfare of animals. So in this way, or they work for the environment. So there's this understanding there's something called thinking, feeling, willing, which is something superior. And such people are considered superstars in the modern society. So that's Jnanmay, working for the welfare of others. Like we see sometimes cows have that sort of consciousness also. So like we have our cow here, Kalindi. So she knows that all these people are maintaining me. So she doesn't allow even the calf to drink full milk. She'll keep some milk for all of us. So she understands. Another cow is sometimes so sensitive that if the owner he has certain sort of disease, she eats a particular type of herb so that when owner drinks that milk, he gets cured. There's sorts of sensitivity there in the cow. So thinking, feeling, willing. Then there's something called mind also. People have sentiments, they feel bad. There's something called humanity. One's not only very selfish. All these things come at the level of Jnanmay. So one understands basically, one appreciates soul in other bodies also. One understands the subtle body, one understands the gross body. Some sort of understanding of there. So that's Jnanmay. So in Jnanmay, it's theoretical knowledge of soul, but in Vijnanmay, one gets that Brahman realization. One realizes how I am separate from gross body and subtle body. I am separate from mind. So Prabhupada writes, living entity's mind and life symptoms are distinguished from living entity himself. That's Vijnan. So Gyan turns into Vijnan. And beyond that, those who realize the Supreme Lord also, who is Krishna, who am I, and what is my relationship with Krishna, that is called Anandamaya. So in this way, Gurukul, they were taught what to eat, what to drink, how to cooperate with each other, how to stay in a family, in the community. That's so Annamay, Pranamay. They were taught the knowledge of soul, how we are separate from gross body, subtle body, etc. Gyan was given. Then they were taught the processes by which one can realize that I am not body, I am soul. So different yoga systems were there. They were taught. And they were also taught Anandamay, the process by which one can realize who is God, who is myself, and what is my relationship with the Supreme Lord. That's Bhakti Yoga. So when all these 5 courses are nourished, individual can be fully happy. So it's not just one thing alone. All the 5 courses have to be nourished in order to be happy. Even one of the courses is not nourished, one cannot remain happy, especially in the conditioned state. So Prabhupada talks about that. Brahma Pratyapratishta. And what this body, gross and subtle, constitutes of, Lord will talk in text number 6 and 7. So that's the next verse. Mahabhutani ahankaro buddhir avyaktam evacha indriyani dasekam cha pancha chendriya gocharaha iksha dvesaha sukham dukkham sangatascetana dhritihi etachitram samasena savikaram udahitam. Please be thankful.
The 5 great elements, false ego, intelligence, the unmanifested, the 10 senses, and the mind, the 5 sense objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate, the life symptoms, and the convictions. All these are considered in summary to be the field of activities and its interactions. Hare Krishna.
Maybe you can read the first paragraph also.
Okay. Purport given by Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. From all the authoritative statements of the great sages, the Vedic hymns, and the aphorisms of Vedanta Sutra, the components of this world can be understood as follows. First, there are earth, water, fire, air, and ether. These are the 5 great elements, Mahabhuta. Then there are false ego, intelligence, and the unmanifested stage of three modes of nature. Then there are 5 senses for acquiring knowledge: the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. Then 5 working senses: voice, legs, hands, anus, and genitals. Then above the senses there is a mind, which is within and which can be called the sense within. Therefore, including the mind, there are 11 senses altogether. Then there are 5 objects of the senses: smell, taste, form, touch, and sound. Now the aggregate of these 24 elements is called the field of activity. If one makes an analytical study of these 24 subjects, then he can very well understand the field of activity. Then there are desire, hatred, happiness, and distress, which are interactions and representations of the 5 great elements in the gross body. The living symptoms represented by consciousness and conviction are the manifestation of the subtle body, mind, ego, and intelligence. These subtle elements are included within the field of activities. Hare Krishna.
In this way, these 24 elements are explained. 5 great elements: earth, water, fire, ether, false ego, intelligence, unmanifested, 10 senses, mind, 5 sense objects. Already we have discussed about them, so we will not discuss about them in detail. So these are sanghataha, they together made of the body, gross body. So they gross and subtle body. They make all 24 elements are cause of gross and subtle body. So Chetana means mental function constituting of knowledge. Dhriti means perseverance. And then desire, hatred, happiness, distress, aggregate life symptoms and convictions. Ichcha, dvesh, sukha, dukha. They are qualities of mind. So these are called transformations of subtle body. What are transformations of gross body?
Birth, death, old age.
From childhood to
All of you had written in exam and you have forgotten.
It grows. There are 6 changes that happens, Prabhu.
Yes.
It gives birth, it grows, and then it reproduces, it maintains for some time, and then it dwindles, and then it will.
Thank you. I'm very happy at least. You are remembering. So these 6 are the transformations of gross body. Similarly, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, aggregate life symptoms and convictions, these are transformations of subtle body. Because these things change and they all are part of subtle body. So desires change over a period of time. We develop hatred for something and love for something else. Happiness and distress. Something which gives us happiness starts giving us distress. Something which gives us distress starts giving us happiness. So all these things, they keep on changing. Especially ichcha, dvesh, sukha and dukha. These 4. They are qualities of mind. They are not qualities of soul. So these are representatives of sankalpa, determination. So these all are part of determination. So kam, heart, desire, sankalpa means determination, vichikitsa, uncertainty, shraddha, faith, ashraddha means lack of faith, dhriti means perseverance, adhriti means lack of perseverance, dhir means humility, dhir means intelligence, dhir means fear. So they all are transformations of mind. So they keep on changing in due course of time, and as we get a new body in the next life, so then subtle body is carried in the womb of a mother, and accordingly one gets a new gross body. Manjunath.
Hare Krishna Uji, here you mentioned desire, hatred, happiness, and distress, which are the interaction representation of the 5 great elements. Here I can see 4. What is the 5th one, Prabhuji?
So ichcha, dvesh, sukha and dukha, they are called the qualities of mind. These 4 we are talking about, not 5, 4.
But in the next line, it's mentioned 5 great elements. Okay, only this.
No,
okay,
5 great in the earth, water, fire, and ether.
Okay.
They are the part of gross body.
All these 4 related to mind only, right, Prabhuji?
They are all related to mind.
Thank you.
So they are transformations of subtle body. Okay, Santosh.
Prabhuji, in the previous verse, Prabhupada in the purport mentions that like there are 2 souls in the one body. Like my question is like when the super soul will enter to a body?
When will the super soul enter a body?
Yeah.
So super soul is always accompanying the body. Super soul is always accompanying the soul. See, one gets a gross body or one gets a subtle body. No.
Prabhuji, yes, bro. Please
What?
ask the question. Your
I
question,
want to
Prabhuji.
hear from.
Your question, Prabhuji. Sir.
One changes gross body or one changes subtle body?
Gross body, Prabhu.
And how does soul travel?
The soul will be covered by the mind, intelligence, and the false ego.
Yes.
And according to the karma, he travels. Yeah.
So super soul stays next to the soul.
Okay.
Understood?
I mean,
Till you're
it
in,
means
till one is there in the material world. So then subtle body is there, and when subtle body is there, so Paramatma is there.
okay. Thank you.
Adding to that question, Prabhuji, soul and super soul is mentioned, but in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the size of the soul is mentioned. But what would be the size of the super soul in the living entity? I mean, like the same size?
Angushta matra amalam, thumb size. So whatever your body is there, accordingly your thumb size is super soul. It comes in Parisamara section.
The verse number, Prabhu, you told something for that, Prabhu.
That's Angushta matra amalam. One I have to see. Yeah. Yesterday I gave a Bhakti yoga class. My book is at other place. So it is Angushta matra. You will just see. Parikshit saved by Lord in the womb of his mother. That's it. And also, I told about this Iksha, this Sukha Dukha. Even other two, Chetana, Dhiti, they are also the transformation of subtle body only. So Chetana means the type of consciousness one has, or living symptoms one has, and Dhriti means convictions. They are also part of subtle body. They also transform subtle. Okay, Sarojini Mataji, say your question.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. When we say the transformations of mind, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, one starts to understand that these are all transformation. He is in Jnanamaya or Vijnanamaya.
So one when you understand these are the transformations and I'm separate from the transformations, at least theoretically, then it is Jnana. And when one realizes that I'm separate from them, then that is called Vijnana.
Realizing in the sense they will not get affected by these things because they understand that these are all disturbances of the mind and they don't get provoked or disturbed. When that is happening, then we say it is realization. What is that exact knowing is these are all things, but realizing means they don't get affected. Is that so?
Yeah, realizing means that one sees oneself as an observer. One doesn't identify with them. Am I audible to all of you? There's some.
Yes, Prabhu.
So observer means one who is not here. Prabhu is not here.
Prabhu is coming, is reconnecting much.
Audible now, all of you?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, if he is the observer in the sense he can clearly distinguish himself from the mind and mind activities.
Yeah, so that's called realization. So one sees these things are happening. One understands, one realizes that I have nothing to do with them. So there may be one may be feeling distress and this and that. One understands that these things are happening in the mind, but I have nothing to do with that. So one doesn't get much affected.
When do a sadhaka practicer will get those, when he consistently performs devotional service, it will automatically come, or how do they go to that stage? Because currently I know we are, at least myself, we are just theoretically trying to understand, but there is something happens, then definitely we are, undergoing this. When the provoking situation comes, we feel distressed, we feel, happiness and distress, both we are experiencing.
So completely it happens at the level of bhav. At the level of bhav, the subtle body dissolves actually. Daryati asuva kosam niginam nenam. The food in the belly is, so similarly, subtle body dissolves. Then spiritual senses start working. So that time one gets realizing that I am not body, I am soul completely. But also these things, it's not that immediately it happens at the level of bhav. Before that, we are fully Krishna, fully bodily conscious. These things also happen gradually.
Okay, sorry, Prabhu, continue.
Yeah. So to what degree are we absorbed matters? So initial days we may be seeing that now we are, like I was so bodily conscious initially that I became late for IIT exam because my footwears broke. Chappal, no, it was damaged, and I had a habit not to put my feet on the ground. So in our home we had a line of different chappals for other rooms. Of course, in kitchen and what we say, puja, the worship place, there we won't wear footwears. Otherwise, we had separate slippers for toilet, bathroom, for washroom, separate for outside, separate for other rooms. I would never put my feet on the ground. So when that broke, it was like such a thing that I lost time for ITG exam, such a bodily consciousness. But nowadays, no, we go to Mayapur and then we move without footwear only. So not so much concern. So bodily consciousness also reduces gradually. So it's a degree. Similarly, now there may be troubles in the mind, but at least with a little contemplation, I can see that I'm little separate from that trouble. Earlier, it was practically impossible. So it's a degree. And it is fully that realization comes at the level of bhav.
So it becomes a natural part of oneself when they are in that stage, when they are in the bhava stage. Until then, a soul will definitely get disturbed to the level they are practicing.
Yes, yes. So the level of bhav one sees like I am in this room, like you are this room or you are in the room.
I am in the room.
So that is your realizing that you are not the room. Similarly, they also get the realization that I am not this gross bodily setup. So they feel that. Till then it's a degree, to a certain degree. It's like a little bit pain is there. We can withdraw our consciousness from that pain. Extreme pain is there. Then automatically it becomes very difficult to withdraw that consciousness. Okay, Sitaram.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, when we leave this material body, we understand that we have the settled body. But when a soul goes into the liberation stage, even the subtle body is not there. So at that time, what is there with the soul? Like, is it consciousness or soul itself is consciousness? I just want to understand.
Yes, soul itself is consciousness. Na? Soul itself has hands, legs, feet, everything, but they are made up of Satchidananda. They are not made of three modes of matter. Our gross and subtle body's material is made up of three modes of material. Soul's hands, feet, eyes, etc. are made up of Satchidananda. So that is difference. The soul has everything and it can function. But when we want to interact with this material world, we cover ourselves with these two layers. Like if you want to go to Siberia, you can't expose even the skin. The time is given. If you expose your skin for more than 10 seconds or 20 seconds, your veins will burst. So then one has to cover himself with different clothes. So similarly, when living entity wants to interact with matter, he needs a gross body and subtle body, because we are in a foreign place.
So we have that mind, intelligence, and ego, no, with the settled body. So what will happen to that? That will be dissolved, or how is it?
Dissolved. Even at the level of bhav, it gets dissolved. So I just told now, like the food in the belly is consumed by fire, prioritizing. Similarly, subtle body is dissolved by the power of practice of Krishna consciousness. Okay. So that's so 5 minutes are remaining, and this verse is a bigger one, 8 to 12. So it talks about knowledge, jnana. So I don't think so we should read this verse now. If you have some other question, you can discuss, or we'll end. There's no question and we'll end.
In somewhere in the 9th chapter or 7th chapter, I've seen Bhakti Yoga and Buddhi Yoga. Are they both same or different, Prabhuji? Or I mean, somewhere I read action and Krishna consciousness is nothing but Buddhi Yoga. So I'm little confused between Bhakti Yoga and Buddhi Yoga, Prabhuji. Can you give some understanding between them?
So you have forgotten what I spoke in chapter number 2.
No, in 7th chapter also I read this, Prabhuji.
So in chapter number 2, Buddhi Yoga was explained, that is mixture of Niskam Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. So sometimes Buddhi Yoga means Niskam Karma Yoga, sometimes it means Bhakti Yoga. Okay. So in chapter number 2, so I don't exactly remember the verses. I think it's 40 to 43, something like that. So just a minute. 42.40 to 46, when Buddhi Yoga is given, it is Bhakti Yoga, 40 to 46. And 2.47 onwards, when Buddhi Yoga is written, it is Niskam Karma Yoga. Okay.
Okay.
So it is sometimes Niskam Karma Yoga, sometimes Bhakti Yoga. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, Murari Bhaktapur.
Krishna Prabhu, that's Pranam. Prabhu, that super soul accompanies the soul till the bodies exist, or it continues up to Goloka?
Goloka is not required, na. Super soul's work of Upadrashta, Anumanta, etc., Sanctioner, Seer, etc., is required in the material world, not in the spiritual world. So as soon as soul goes to the spiritual realm, their super soul is not required. Their one directly interacts with the Supreme Lord. Okay.
So our understanding is super soul and soul partnership only for this body.
Yes.
Thanks.
Till we have this, not this body, it's like subtle body. Till we have subtle body and we have journey in this material world, till then there is a need of super soul. As soon as one goes back to Godhead, super soul is not required. Okay.
Okay, bro. Understood. Thanks.
Radhasmiti Madhuri, some question?
Yeah, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, Pranam. So when the soul travels in the lower planets, when suffering, it goes to the hell, then that time super soul is also with the soul?
Yes. Even in the hellish planets, when one may be a worm in the stool, all situations super soul is there.
Okay, Prabhuji, and one more question I have. When the soul goes into another body, the subtle elements, mind and intelligence and false ego are also going. So then are there any changes? I mean, like previous janmas, false ego, intelligence and mind, now this janma. So are there variations? Is it same?
Yeah, so
I mean-
Iksha, Dvesh, Sukha, Dukkha, in the same verse we were seeing, Iksha, Dvesh, Sukha, Dukkha, according to that, subtle body continuously has transformations. And whatever subtle body we have prepared by the end of one life, accordingly we'll get the gross body in the next life. So transformation is always happening. See, always we are having our likes, dislikes are changing. Sources of happiness and distress are changing. So they keep on changing. So somewhere there are changes are there. And when we occupy another body, depending on our likes, dislikes, happiness, distress, we get a new body.
Okay, okay, Prabhuji. Thank you.
So we'll end here. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki,
Jai.
Prabhupada ki, Jai Bhagavad.
Very good.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Hare
Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpa dirupishta kripa sudeva
Krishna.
Jai.
Happy Ekadashi.
Happy. Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Thanks.